Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours, coming to you live from San Francisco. Thanks so much for taking time out of your Wednesday evening to spend it here in the spirit of community, mentorship, and learning. I'm your host, Dave Nava. I'm a lead solution engineer at Salesforce, and I'm a Military Trailblazer. Each week, we invite a co-host, or in this case, co-hosts, to take part in the conversation so we can leverage their experience, their expertise, and their unique perspectives. Super excited for tonight's session. The focus is best practices for transitioning to the Salesforce ecosystem. So if you are looking for tips and guidance on how to break into this industry, this is the session for you. I would like to welcome and briefly introduce our co-host panel for tonight's session. In alphabetical order, please welcome Geralyn Hall, Anni Mezzofante, and Tim Vellutini. Geralyn is a 4-time certified senior success manager at Salesforce, an Army veteran, and a military spouse advocate. Anni is a business analyst at Deloitte Digital, a 2-time Ranger and certified admin, and a veteran spouse. And Tim is an IT systems analyst at USAA, a Merivis mentor, and an Army veteran with over 25 years of military service. It is awesome to have you all here with me, co-hosting Office Hours. Welcome, Geralyn, Anni, and Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, so if you each, as we normally do, if you each want to take a moment to further introduce yourself, kind of describe your current role and share a bit of your Salesforce story, that would be great. Geralyn, would you like to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is not my normal backdrop, everyone. I too am in San Francisco with David. I thought it would be fun if we actually sat next to each other, but he was like, no, Geralyn, you cannot do that. So, so I am pretty new to the Salesforce ecosystem. I started my journey back in April of last year. Was not really an end user of Salesforce at all. I had worked in the HR space, transitioned out of the military quite a bit ago in 2013. And I just moved around a lot with my husband still being active duty Air Force. So I was really kind of looking for something that I could take with me. And for me, I started taking the different modules on Trailhead as I heard about the Salesforce Fellowship Program, and I really was hooked on the value that I thought that I could bring had I had these tools in my toolkit in my past roles. So I was really excited. Went through the Hire a Hero Salesforce Fellowship Program. I was matched with my host company, Higher Echelon, was hired on full time. And then this past December, I transitioned into a role at Salesforce as a senior success manager in the Fins vertical for enterprise wealth and asset management.
Awesome. Such a great story, Geralyn. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. Anni, do you want to go next?
Sure. I have a finance background. I was an Army brat, turned Army wife, veteran spouse now. When my husband was getting out or looking to get out, we decided I'd use his GI Bill, and I went to school and got degrees in finance, accounting, and economics. Loved that. One of my first jobs right out of that was in the finance industry. And I love helping people. I loved the numbers and the math, but what I really found I was really exceptional at and passionate about was being the translator between the end user and our ID department. We used Salesforce there. We were bringing on a new implementation, so I got to beta test and tell IT, no, you can't tell them. They can open as many tabs as they want because, see, I broke a computer. I ended up breaking 3 computers being IT beta test because they want to say you can do everything. And the financial world, they're not, finance guys they're good with the numbers. They're not good with computers. And if you tell them they can leave a tab open, they will. They'll never close one. So I showed them that they couldn't do that stuff, helped them, helped bring on the implementation for our market. Within 6 months, had 70% of our users utilizing it on a daily basis. So that's making it work for them, not just clicking where they were told. They were brave enough to go and search for something new before calling me because I had helped them set it up to work for them in their individual roles. Loved it. Said, I can't do the finance world anymore, and I quit. I had started the Salesforce Trailhead December of, it's 22, 21, 20 of 2020. So worked on that, heads down, started going to virtual events about Salesforce. Had a lot of people who are like, this is great, but I think you should look at consulting instead of the IT world, because that's what I was looking at. I had A+ and Network Plus certifications already. So I did start looking at consulting, got into the SCS, which is Salesforce Consulting Select cohort, was asked to interview and landed a job at Deloitte, where I, as you know, if you follow me on LinkedIn, absolutely love what I do. I know I sound like a Kool-Aid drinker, but you can be one too, I promise. So I'll let Timothy go next.
Awesome. Thank you, Annie.
So yeah, I'm currently an IT analyst with USAA. Our team is responsible for the management of 3 of our orgs, 3 of the 5 orgs we have at USAA, and then we own 7 or 8 apps, end to end. So my journey into the Salesforce ecosystem was pretty fast, and I don't think it's untypical of just opportunities that the Salesforce military and the ecosystem and the kind of the passionate community provides for military veterans and spouses. I think I probably started around the same time as Annie in January of 21. Started with a Meravis cohort after finding out that, hey, Salesforce is the track I want to go down. That led right into hiring our heroes, which led into a direct hire. I didn't end up doing the cohort, got the direct hire with USAA. So yeah, in about a period of 4 months, I went from, not knowing anything really about Salesforce other than, I think I want to be like a Salesforce guy. I don't know what that means, but to the current job I have. And again, a lot of that was luck and timing, but a lot of great resources from Trailhead Military, Meravis, Veterati is a huge one. That was huge for me to just like figure out what I want to do. Hiring heroes, of course, David and all the other veterans out there, Elio, that helped me throughout my journey. So that's what I've done and kind of how I got here.
Yeah, great story. And you 3 are the folks that I kind of share stories of when people ask me how is it done? Like, how can I do it? What are some like successful stories for veterans and spouses that have really taken the transition by storm? And I tell your story. So it's great to have you co-hosting office hours with me. And if you're new to office hours and you're listening to terms like hiring our heroes and Meravis, and you're not quite sure what those are, work experience is one of the hardest things to get in any industry when you're transitioning into it. Those are tools to be able to get that. So if you have questions about what hiring our heroes is, what Meravis is, how you can leverage those programs, please feel free to ask those questions. And that's kind of why we're here today. So for those folks that may be new on the call, I do like to always lay the groundwork and chat about what the purpose of these office hours is before we open the floor for questions and discussion. And so these office hours are an informal get-together for gathering with military trailblazers as well as allies. Everyone is welcome to attend to explore non-technical Salesforce career and branding related topics to help you achieve your professional development and career related goals. And so while we will stray into military specific topics, please understand that most of the things we talk about are transition related in general and will apply to both military and non-military trailblazers alike. So the next hour is intended to be an opportunity for collaborative mentorship. Absolutely everyone on the call is encouraged to step up and both ask and answer questions from your perspective, which will of course provide additional diversity of experience of the answers given. As I always do, keep an eye on the chat window through the session, because I'll be posting things in chat, which I've already started. Things like volunteer opportunities, employment opportunities, really interesting knowledge articles from various thought leaders in the Salesforce ecosystem. And what I'll be posting here in a moment is a invite to complete the survey. So it's an impact survey to demonstrate how office hours may have helped you. Please take the 3 to 5 minutes to fill it out. It would mean a lot to me, and it helps me to continue to provide this service for everyone. So I'll post that here in a second. But if you'd like to ask a question at any point during today's session, please feel free to do so. This is your session, so I put it on. If you don't feel comfortable speaking up, then that's okay. Just post it in chat. I'll ask it for you, and I will be keeping my eye on hands raised throughout the session and calling on you as you have questions. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and toss the first couple questions out there. And Geralyn, Annie, and Tim, feel free to jump on this in any order. Doesn't matter to me. whoever feels comfortable. But we'll start with, that one of the things that that I struggled with, and I know a lot of folks struggle with when they learn about the Salesforce ecosystem, is it's vast. There's hundreds of roles. How did you approach choosing the area that you wanted to focus in?
I can go first because mine changed while I was looking.
Yeah.
As I said, I had A+ and Network Plus, still have them, certifications, which is hardware and software, basically. You know the basics of hardware and software. So I thought I wanted to be in the IT and do that kind of stuff. I've done a lot of that, helped a lot of people understand how to use a mouse, literally, how to turn on a monitor, literally. Don't unplug the phone because that's how you get internet. Right? And I loved that. I did. But what I really loved was that I was helping people, right? And so when I went to virtual interviews, right? They have mock interviews where you can get your resume looked at, where you can answer questions. A lot of the feedback I was getting was, you should look at consulting. I don't think you're wanting the IT world that you think you do, right? So I did. I started looking at that. I collect certifications like people collect socks, underwear, cats, dogs, I love learning. And for me, it's my way of keeping the imposter syndrome shadow away. I have a binder. I think everybody should have a binder. Put stuff in there that reminds you that you were hired because you do know your stuff. But the biggest thing was finding that passion, right? What was my passion? What made my heart sing, right? I ask everybody when I talk to them, what makes your heart sing? My heart sings when I help people. And I don't care what it is that I'm helping. I've helped teachers sharpen 2,000 pencils. It took 2 hours for me. It would have taken 2 weeks for them, right? I helped them, and it was something super small and minor. I've helped save a thrift shop, right? That helped a whole community. I was able to do that. What I'm doing now is I'm helping my clients make sure to be able to use Salesforce and set it up so that their employees can utilize it. I get to do that every single day. Like today, I looked at a whole bunch of numbers and it was really cool and geeky. But the big thing that I was doing is helping figure that data out so that our client can better see and spotlight where some of the bottlenecks are that they're having, and they don't realize where they are. They think it's here and it's actually over here. So for me, it's you've got to find what makes your heart sing, and you got to think really hard about that, right? You got to think really hard about what makes your heart sing.
Yeah, to your point, you absolutely have to follow your passions, and that's why I got into consulting. I love to problem solve, and I love to help people, and that is what you do every single day as a consultant. So great points, Annie. Who wants to tackle that question?
I'll jump in real quick. I was still active duty when I was going through this process, and the first thing is, there's just, I didn't know what I didn't know, right? Yeah, I remember, I think Wade Moll was the first person I talked to on Veterati that kind of, he had his little first, 3-minute spiel of, tell me about yourself, what do you want to do? And I remember just like a couple of those questions thinking, I don't know, I'm an Army guy, I've done all this cool stuff. That's what really got it into my head as far as like, just really researching what is the sector, what is, what is it that you do want to do, what role do you want to do? And so as far as resources, I'd say Veterati was probably the #1 resource I used in those early days of, first I thought I wanted to go and be project manager. It's like, oh, it's a natural transition kind of from what I've been doing in project management. And then, somebody asked me like, okay, project management, and what field, like what industry? And it's like, I don't know, like I can do anything. And, but how do you communicate that value? You don't even know. And so, yeah, Veterati is absolutely like the #1, resource that kind of helped me, narrow down my what I was looking at from kind of big to until I found Salesforce. I don't even remember who I spoke to. It might have been Wade or somebody else. And that's when I started researching and really trying to refine what it was that I wanted to do. But similar to like you mentioned, David and Annie, is, I knew that I didn't want to stay in the military industrial complex if I didn't have to. It was a great fallback, but I've been doing it for 25 years, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something that, that interests me, that I got excited to go to work with every day. And then, I was constantly learning. And I think that's kind of one of my prongs for living long, and productive life is, kind of that constant learning, challenging yourself and, in something new. And within Salesforce, I mean, it's so vast. You can do so many, different things. And yeah, that's kind of how I kind of honed it down.
Yeah, Veterati is a phenomenal tool. And if you're not familiar with what it is, I put the link in there. You can be a mentor or a mentee, but it's a free online platform to have focused one-to-one conversations between mentors and mentees on any aspect of the professional world. In our case, of course, it's Salesforce, so it's a great place to go to get that mentorship. And if you're a military spouse or a veteran, you can be a mentee. And if you're anybody, you can be a mentor. So I highly encourage you to sign up. I've used it throughout my career on both ends, mentor and mentee, and it's helped tremendously. Great points, Tim. Geralyn, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with Tim saying that Veterati was so important to me, kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. I remember talking to Maya Matas, who is another fellow that went through the program before I did. And the piece of advice that she gave me was really just, what do you like doing in your role? What do you not like doing? Set up those meetings with Veterati mentors and ask them, like, I really like doing this. I don't really like doing this. Like, what does that role look like at your company? So it really helped me kind of at least make a little bit more of a tighter grouping as to what roles I wanted to explore. So if you are not on Veterati already, I would definitely recommend doing that, because you have that safe space to ask those types of questions. So you can really start driving the direction that you want your career to go in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a phenomenal sounding board for kind of test driving different career paths to ultimately find the one that most resonates with you. And it's a risk-free way to do it. You don't actually have to be in that role to learn whether or not you like it. You just talk to a few folks and go, oh, that's not for me, or oh, that sounds like my jam. Let me look into it a little bit more. Great points. Thanks so much, Carrie. Carrie posted a few questions in chat, so we'll go ahead and go to those first. And she asked 2 questions. First one is, can you share some stories about your first Salesforce projects? So anything that stood out, maybe any learnings you had, maybe any mistakes you made, lessons learned, anything like that?
Yeah, I guess I can tackle that one. So
Awesome.
I was fortunate enough to work on a couple of big projects when I was at higher echelon, my host company. One of them was with the Department of Veterans Affairs. And, I think the other was with the Army for a proof of concept. So I really think the amazing thing about me going through the fellowship is I had the opportunity when I wasn't on billable projects to really dig in and figure things out and be able to struggle. I know me personally, that's how I learn best. Is I don't know how to do something. I'm just going to bang my head against the wall a bunch of times and, sometimes have to put it down for the night and then come back the next morning and then it all makes sense. So I think that fine line, once I turned into a full-time employee and was working on billable projects, finding that line when it's okay to struggle a little bit, but then knowing that there's a point where, you're working on a billable project. And so you don't want to struggle so much when someone else on your team might have that answer and be able to figure it out pretty quickly. So finding that balance, I think, is really important.
That's a phenomenal point. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I see your hands, Elio and Kathleen. We'll get to you in just one moment. Tim, Anni, did you want to piggyback on that or bring up a different point from your first project?
Yeah, I'll definitely, definitely follow up with what Geralyn was saying about this. It's definitely good to learn, and I like to go deep. So that's one of my things. And sometimes I'll get into a problem, and I'll go to something else, and I'll start. Salesforce is great. It has, it's got a bunch of doctrine, right? It's got a bunch of help articles and all these things. You start looking into that, and you're like, oh, that's cool. Let me try this. And sometimes I go a little bit deep there. So I learned that about time management, and kind of what Geralyn was saying too. Is okay, maybe I should ask my tech lead a little bit, and just kind of having that throttle, how much time you're spending and investing, while definitely good, versus task completion. But I think maybe somewhat related to this question, and I think it is a good distinction to know, is understanding the 2 types, or I guess the 2 main types of jobs within the ecosystem. Kind of working with a consulting company that you're doing the employment, and you're helping customers, but then being, in a larger company like, like USAA, Toyota, whomever else that uses Salesforce, and being the end user side of it, and understanding there's a bunch of different software that goes into keeping an org afloat, from Capado to Q testing to, like a Jira board. I'm like, what the heck's a Jira board? Why am I, why am I going to these meetings to, being in a bank or, bank/insurance company, we have compliance, regulatory processes we have to go through. And, that takes up some of your time, and it's all foreign because outside of Capado, I had never heard of any of these other things. But, being an end user in a company that uses Salesforce, I'd imagine there's probably similar things in other companies, probably not as much just due to our compliance and regulatory, requirements.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you bring up, because for the most part, Hiring Our Heroes connects veterans and spouses to consulting jobs in the partner ecosystem, but you actually got to work for a customer, which is completely different and equally interesting. So that's a great point. And the roles are different. So if you're interested in what it's like to work not in the partner ecosystem, but for a customer of Salesforce, maintaining their instance or instances, definitely chat with Tim. Andy, did you want to follow up or bring up a similar point?
Yeah, mine was a little different. I'm junior staff. I came in to Deloitte Digital as a business analyst, but there was a glitch in the system and I was put in as a senior consultant. So my very first project I loved it. I was PMO. I was brought on as PMO, which is a project management office for a brand new project. I was asked to set up the entire project, get it on a good foundation, have all the onboarding figured out, and be able to bring everybody on. I ended up rolling off after 3 weeks because I had done that. I set up the project on a great foundation. Don't know anything about user stories. Don't know anything about what they're looking for, how to do the discovery, but I know how to boss people around. So I got them all onboarded in 3 weeks. I set it all on a good foundation, and I went to my project lead and I said, okay, I literally have nothing to do. What do you want me to do? And she's like, what do you mean? I said, well, Monday through Thursday, I have 5 minutes worth of work, and Friday, I have about an hour's worth of work. And she's like, wait, what do you mean? You're the PMO. I'm like, I know, I've got everybody onboarded except for the last 2 who are only going to be on in the last week. And I don't know what else to do out here because I'm been here 2 months, So I said, why don't you roll me off? I can get on a new project, learn more of the basic things, and you can take my budget and bring somebody who's specialized to coordinate your functional and technical teams, use that budget wiser, more, get it done quicker or something. So that's what we did. I rolled off of that right into another PM role. And that's what I've done. I love doing it. I love the organization because it helps people. I get to do, again, what I told you, you got to find what makes your heart sing. So I'm becoming known for that. I'm becoming known for the person who can roll onto your project, get things organized, get it on a good foundation, and roll right back off. And you can use that budget for something else. So.
Yeah, that's what we're known for as veterans and spouses. We get stuff done. And you find that that's not as common as you might think in the civilian world. And it's one of our differentiators when we go to organizations, and they're amazed by, how much stuff we get done and the broad spectrum of things that we get done, because, we've done a lot of it before. We faced these challenges. So awesome to bring that up. Thank you. All right, Elio, you have the floor, sir.
Just a quick question for Tim. And I know we talked as you were transitioning from the military after, I think, 25 years, right?
Yes, yeah.
Rank of first sergeant major?
Sergeant major, yeah. The Army doesn't get them all right, so they let some of us slip through.
Well, my question to you is if you would be open to network with people that have had same rank as you or have been in that space in service and are transitioning. There's a few people actually on the call. I don't want to call them out on the call, but they reached out to me kind of like what you did. And now here you are, a great example out in the field doing what you like. And I think it would be great for them. I'll reach out to them offline, but I'm always looking to connect, people of the same type of background, so they understand, you know, what it took you to get there, right? I mean, you were in service for a long time and you've made the transition. And I just, number one, it's great to see you and great to see everybody else. But I just wanted to, you know, to see if you would make that opportunity available for others.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm on Veterati. It's kind of limited, but yeah, definitely on LinkedIn. Anybody on the call, regardless of whatever service or rank, or if you're a spouse. I mean, I'll definitely link out with anybody. And you know, especially if think they're going to go in a similar path, or you know, they're interested in either the company or just whatever. Completely open to talk with anybody and set up a time to, you know, try to pass on what I've learned and, you know, help them, you know, along their path.
Awesome.
Try not to trip over the same logs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Shorten their learning curve, right? And you know, or maybe help, you know, you go ahead and maybe there's some things that, you know, I can provide, and like, oh shoot, like Dave was saying, you know, from Veterati, like, oh yeah, maybe I don't want to do that, or maybe I don't want to do this role or whatever. So yeah, absolutely. Always available.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Elia, for bringing that up. You know, that's why we're here. We're here to create those mentorship relationships, both during this call and afterwards. So absolutely connect with Tim, and he can have chats with you, and that's why we're here. Kathleen, you have the floor. I just question or comment.
I just wanted to piggyback on what you were saying with Veterati. I've reached out to so many when I was going through the fellowship process. I mean, Geralyn was one of them, and everybody, if they don't have time, they'll tell you they don't have time or they won't respond. And the worst someone can say is no. But for the most part, everybody has been more than willing to take out the time, an hour of their day to reach out. And so don't be afraid to contact people on LinkedIn. The worst they could say is no or not respond. Nobody is going to bite you.
Yeah, great point. It's an incredibly giving environment, and you'll find that you know, some of those mentorship relationships that you'll develop on Veterati will last beyond the platform and will become your mentors, you know, throughout your career. So thank you for bringing that up. Carrie had one more question. We'll go ahead and tackle that in a second, because I do have some questions that people submitted in our LinkedIn group that I wanted to get to as well. So kind of a work-life balance question for you three. During your career transition, how did you find time to study given your hectic schedule? And anyone can tackle that one first.
I can go. Yeah, so when I decided to kind of make the jump into the Salesforce ecosystem, I was working full time. So for me, it was very much like in the evenings and on the weekends. It kind of took up my whole time, I will say. My husband was very gracious during that time, and my kids were cheering me on every time that I took a test. But, you know, I think for me, it was really what was a priority for me. And you just kind of have to decide where you're at in your life at that point in time. Like what can you take on? And what are you able to do is something that I, you know, set a deadline for being able to apply for the fellowship program. And I just went for it. Was it fun? Not always. It was a lot of studying, but if you're committed and if you want it, you will make the time to be able to get there.
Yeah, it's a great point. And to kind of restate what you said, you know, find those support networks that exist for you, whatever that looks like. You know, for you, Geralyn, it was your family. And, you know, for some of you, it may be your family, but you may not have close family members. And so in that case, leverage the Trailblazer community to be able to provide that support and that motivation to study. Someone brought up Maravis earlier. Maravis is a nonprofit that not only do they provide you with training and education and job, you know, resources, but they also have a large community of others that can help motivate you to study, keep you on your study path, that you can use for your support network. So whatever that looks like for you, find those folks and use them to help motivate you and get you down that path. Anni or Tim, did you want to talk about kind of your study schedule?
Well, I used Wounded Warrior program. My husband is disabled, and we were going through that. He was using it because he was looking at transitioning back into the workforce. He'd been a stay-at-home dad since he got out in 2015, and same month I got my degrees. I graduated when we switched roles. He got some firsts for a change, and I got to skip things for a change. So, while I was still working, I made a decision that family time was at dinner. We all cooked together. Meals are a big thing for us. They can last 2 hours easily. But then afterwards, while everybody else was watching movies or goofing off or hopefully doing homework, I was doing homework too. I had a certain number of modules I wanted to do. I had a certain number of people on LinkedIn I wanted to connect with and reach out to. I had virtual events to look and search for, right? So I was spending that. Then when I quit, my job to me was getting a new job. So that's becoming an expert in how to do that. And that just meant more of all of that. So instead of 2 hours, I was spending 9 or 10 hours a day doing that. I was putting in a minimum of 1 application a day, and that means you are tailoring it, right? I was working on my master resume. For me, I have what I call a transitioning trifecta. It's my education. So I was doing studying of some kind every single day. I have my board of you. That's what I call it. It's the, right? Every company has a board of members. Well, I have one for myself, and I don't want yes men. I want people who are going to be honest with me and tell me what I really need to hear, right? With me guiding my ship, right? I want to go into IT, so I was finding mentors to help me with that. And then my master resume, which was looking at every single job posting from janitor to the vice president of a company and seeing what those job descriptions were and pulling that information into my master resume of things I have done. Because when I go to do my resume and tailor it for that specific job, it takes me 15 minutes and I'm done and I apply. So many days I was applying to more than one, but I had a minimum of 1 I did every single day. I was looking for support in my community. There's, we have a lot of different programs. Hiring Our Heroes, Wounded Warrior Program, Meritivus, I'm forgetting somebody, Veterati. You have employment centers in your community. Goodwill has programs that go on for military and for non-military. Somebody has created a program out there because they know somebody who needed it and didn't have it. You should be seeking those out. Look for them. They are everywhere. There is so much support for you that there is no excuse not to get it.
Those are great points. And I wanted to kind of foot stomp on something you said, which is the board of you. So if you haven't heard that term before, it's called by different names. I call it my brain trust, but it's essentially, it's a small, close-knit group of mentors that you reach out to and you assemble either individually, one at a time, or sometimes all together during the same meeting, and you bounce ideas off and you have, whatever those questions are, whether they're personal, whether they're professional. In my case, they're professional. And it's a trusted, group of folks that you can get expert advice from. And so throughout your career, you should be building that board of you or that brain trust for those members so that when you have those tough career decisions, like, do I apply for this promotion, or should I accept this, or should I do that? You can bounce it off them, get a second opinion, and that will help you throughout your professional life. Great point. Tim, over to you. And then we'll get to Kathleen and then Tricia and Tyler.
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate. When I was going through the process, my replacement had come. So my last week of my actual work, my replacement was there. Was my first week of, my third week of Merivis, kind of getting an intensive week. So I was lucky enough to kind of have that time off. So I didn't really have a lot of pressure as far as, work or, hey, I got to find a job. And then my number one enabler was my wife. She squirreled the kids away, and she held it down because, as you and Elio kind of know, my new job was Salesforce and everything kind of that Annie mentioned that, hey, networking, branding, technical expertise, trying to get that work experience is any way I could. And I was doing that. I went from, working unhealthy work-life balance, in my job in the military to doing that, it was, anywhere from 9 to 11 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's how, that in that short, really 3-month period is when I got, the 2 certs and the 3 times Ranger, because that was my job, and that's what I was doing. If I wasn't studying, I was talking to somebody. If I wasn't talking to somebody, I was plotting or researching or something. So yeah, from the perspective of managing, balancing, I was really lucky. But I wouldn't I just dove in head first, and my timing was, I just got lucky.
Yeah, but to your point, Tim, it absolutely is a second job, and that's how you should treat it, right? So searching for your career, even if you're in your current career, is going to take a significant amount of time, and you have to treat it like that second job. And so some folks will have the benefit of not having, like Tim had some free time, and he put all that into his professional development. Some people won't have that, but I think the unifying factor among Geralyn and Anni and Tim was that find some time to carve out every single day and make that your study time, make that your professional development time. And not only will that help you with the transition, it will help you throughout your career. So we've got a kind of a bunch of questions. I haven't forgotten about yours, Carrie. We're going to come back to Carrie's question here in a moment. First, we'll tackle Kathleen's, then we'll go to Trish and Tyler. But Kathleen asks, for each of you, how many hours are you really per week?
I'll start off as a customer. I'm straight up 40. Yeah, I'm in, I'm out, clock out. And yeah, it's a very predictable pace and requirements, and it's actually really tough for me. Like that part of it is very tough to unplug. But yeah, 40.
That's awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah, I would say with the structure of my role, how it is right now, I work 40 hours a week, just because of the structure of my role.
Great.
For me,
Annie, what about you?
It's a little different. It depends on if I'm on client work or not. If I'm not, I add a minimum of 40 hours I have to log a week, and I'm salary, so I can really pick and choose how I want to do that, which I love because I can start at 8, or if I need to start at 6 because I want to leave earlier in the day or have something in the afternoon, I can do that. But part of that is finding client work. So it's networking. It doesn't stop just because I found a job. I have to network inside of my company to find those projects that I want, right? I get to pick the projects I want. I interview for them, but I'm also interviewing the project, right? What are you needing? What are you looking for? Things like that. When I'm on client work, I log 45 hours for client charge, but honestly, every week I'm 50 or 60 hours because I'm also doing studying, like I said. So, and one of the nice things about here is that I can do that. I can get paid to study. So, and like I said, as long as I'm doing my minimum hours a week, it doesn't really matter. So.
Yeah, great point. The underlying factor being, before you choose your role, talk to folks about how often they're working, because some folks will be straight 40 hours, like Tim and Geralyn. Others won't be. And so, work-life balance is huge, and make sure you're selecting a job that has the work-life balance that you need. Okay, so Trish, I think you had your hand raised, and then we'll go to Tyler.
Okay, I kind of put my hand down, but this did kind of lead me to another question. The first thing I was kind of going to ask you about was when you did get that first role. I know, Timothy, you had mentioned you had a few certifications coming in. If you only had one when you started, was there a lot of pressure to get more certifications? And I know you said you carve out time for studying and everything, but was there a lot of pressure for that? And then I guess the other that would kind of wrap in with that is, I know like Geralyn and Timothy, you guys said you work 40 hours a week, but when you were newer, were you finding that because you didn't have the experience that you were having to put in extra hours in order to maybe research some more things to kind of get, in more hours, spend more hours because you didn't have
Yeah, so I can start, Trish. Great question. So I will say it probably depends on the role that you're going into. So if you're going to work for a Salesforce partner, you may find that there's more emphasis around getting more certifications. And you may see a bit more urgency around that. For my role that I'm in right now, there were certifications. You weren't required to have any to apply for the role, but there were certifications that once you were hired, you were expected to get those certifications. So I think it really depends on the role, honestly, and kind of the area that you're going into. You can still work in the ecosystem, but not necessarily have a role that you need to have certifications. I would always encourage it, at least admin, so you have a really good platform for, okay, this is these are the bones of like what the platform is built on. So I would say that, yeah, that's something that I would really encourage everyone to look at getting. And I think most people on this call are probably either have or are actively going after a certification. For the second part of your question, like for me, when I was learning and during the fellowship, I had the time, like I said, to struggle and to go through those things. But once again, you know, if you're in a role where you're billing your time to customers, you just kind of have to be cognizant of what that looks like, right? You oftentimes are winning contracts based on, you know, the amount that you say that you're going to be able to do whatever the work is for. So being cognizant of that. But yeah, I would say I definitely spent more time. And in my role prior to this one at Salesforce, I was in a salaried position. And so, you know, there's a bit more flexibility around hours at that point.
Awesome. Thank you, Geralyn. Tim or Annie, did you want to follow up at all?
Yeah, I'd say I think the certification thing goes back into maybe that divergence of what's the role. Are you working for a consulting firm? Are you working for an end user? Like I am with Salesforce. And so as far as the certifications, what I've seen, that there's some super talented people on my team. They might have 2 or 3 certs, and I have no doubt. They're taking investments, and they probably have 5 or 6. I don't know, but they probably could have like 10. But so they do invest in themselves, and we do definitely invest in ourselves, and that's a priority or a goal for our team. And but as far as is it being kind of a pressing thing, it's absolutely not. It's more of a results oriented. You have your capacity for a given 2-week sprint, and you kind of demonstrate your your technical expertise by completing those on time and maybe getting ahead. So there's while it's definitely promoted to gain that experience, however, it's not, there's zero pressure. For the second part, I didn't really know it was 40 hours. It was 40 hours the whole time. It's like some super dedicated, like I probably didn't take lunches. Like a lot of times I sit here and I eat at my desk, and so maybe it was whatever, 45 hours. And I just honed in, but no, it's pretty much in and out. And there's a little flexibility on the back end, front end, if I work 8 to 4 or 9 to 5, but yeah, it's pretty much 40 hours.
Awesome. What about you, Annie?
It depends. Deloitte is huge. Okay. I had a lot of people who asked me, I thought you said you didn't want to be an accountant. I'm not. That's a whole different section, right? But that's what Deloitte's really known for, is the auditing. But we are huge. And so if you want to do it, you can do it in Salesforce. You can do it here at Deloitte. So it depends. Do you want a job that is very specific and tailored to nothing but Salesforce? Go for that. I don't. I have my Salesforce certification. I'm trying to keep on doing more of them. But I also have some other ones that I want to get. I'm expert rated in Excel. I got that for a reason, because of what I want to do, and being that fixer and helping people understand data and stuff. That's really important for me. So being hyper focused on one brand of certifications isn't necessarily what's going to work for you, but at the same time, on the flip side, it really could too. You can super hyper specialize. You want to talk about some of the best paid people in the world, talk to some of the Salesforce architects. You know what I mean? They're super specialized, right? There's very few of them. So it's back to what makes your heart sing.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Annie. So we're going to go to Tyler, and then we'll circle back to Carrie, one of Carrie's original questions, and then we'll follow up with Calvin's question. He's got a couple questions, which are really good ones as well. So Tyler, you have the floor.
So Tim, this might be more geared towards you, but Geralyn and Annie, y'all might be able to answer it too. So during the transition out of the military, did you ever silo your look of what you wanted to do as a job when you got out into Salesforce only, into the ecosystem, or did you keep those other opportunities open? That's kind of all I got.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think no, that's good. That's great. You know, I had no idea what I want to do, right? So Veterati again, you know, I kind of thought I knew what I wanted to do, and then, you know, through kind of the Veterati process of, you know, 8 or 9 or 10 calls, I kind of honed in probably over a month period or so, or maybe 2 months of Salesforce, kind of looked into it. And, you know, like I said, my timing was really lucky. Merivis stacked right now, you know, end to end against higher heroes. But yeah, absolutely. Once I figured out Salesforce, and that's really what sold it for me was, you know, I read Mark Benioff's book, is it Trailblazers? Which one's the one when he talks about the culture and values? Yeah, so I read that book, right? It's like, okay, yeah, this guy's hyping up his company, cool. You got a lot of money, you're great. But then I started meeting like the Davids, the Elios, the Wade Moles, and, you know, all this super strong veteran community within Salesforce. And, you know, the values that Mark talks about in the book, they were kind of, you know, saying the same thing, but they're on their own way, how they internalized it. And I was like, oh, wow, this is what I want to do. And so once I figured all that, I found out, you know, cut out all the stuff that I didn't want to do, or I realized I didn't want to do. And I kind of, you know, got started on Salesforce, and then I kind of, you know, validated what I was thinking of it through all these, you know, targeted meetings with Salesforce employees through Veterati and LinkedIn. I was all in. That's, you know, I was all in. I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm going in. That's when, you know, again, my timing super lucky, and I was able to just, you know, attack it, you know, with all my vigor.
It's a great question, and, you know, from my opinion, in my opinion, I think there has to be a point where you're all in. You know, if you always have your kind of toes in other areas, you know, and you're casually kind of checking it out, you're never going to be fully invested. You're never going to take the opportunity to do the full amount of learning, to put your whole self forward. And that's very obvious to see to recruiters, to other folks in the ecosystem. And ultimately, you know, I think you'll fail. But I do want to hear what Geralyn and Anni think about that as well.
For me, I didn't hyper focus on Salesforce. But when my husband was looking to get out, I did hyper focus, and it's my biggest failure ever. I wanted to be a financial advisor. Boy, was I friggin' wrong. Went to school, got degrees, took 4.5 years, used up the whole GI Bill, got 2 degrees with 3 majors and a minor, got kids through elementary and middle school, had a husband in Afghanistan. At the same time, we had to evacuate because of a fire, and got into it and went, oh, no way, right? But like David said, you have to be all in or not, okay? And when you say Salesforce, that literally means anything, right? I'm in the Salesforce ecosystem, but I'm not doing anything with Salesforce itself. I'm not being an administrator. I'm not doing that kind of thing. I'm pulling information out of Salesforce and other systems and going, you got a hole here. You got Swiss cheese. What can we do to fill these holes in? So you've got to, like David said, you got to be all in and figure out what it is you really want to do. Because if you really want to just mop floors, you don't need Salesforce.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, and you know, I think just personality wise, I'm someone that, like, once I get an idea in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna do it. Like I'm all in, right? So for me, I think it's kind of important that you feel that passion behind it, and that you really jump in and like just say, I'm gonna give it my all. Because like David said, I think you can kind of tell when somebody's just kind of half in, half out. So yeah, I would agree with both Tim and Anni that, you know, if you're gonna do it, like just do it the best that you can and be all in.
Yeah,
You'll find out real quick if you don't like it too.
And
go
that's,
head first, figure it out if you like it or don't.
Yep, and everyone has brought up Veterati. That's where you figure out if you do or don't like it. You have those informational interviews. But I get it, Tyler, right? It's like, it's all about limiting risk. What happens if I jump all in and I hate it? well, that's a concern, right? So you have the informational interviews, you do a ton of research up front without committing yourself. Once you figure out, okay, no kidding, this is what I want. There's people in the community that are going to support me. I have the resources that I need. I love doing the work. Then you're all in. And with the Salesforce ecosystem, it's so vast. There's so many different roles that, there's never a worry that, one, you won't have a job because, it's 4.2 million jobs, something like that in the next 4 or 5 years. And two, if you get bored with one job, move to something else. If you're bored being an admin, move to a consultant. Bored being a consultant, move to be a solution engineer. There's tons of opportunity. So, Iris, I see you have your hand raised. Do you have a question or comment?
I said, I think it's 9.6 million jobs in the next 4 years. So quite a few to choose from.
Just double what I said.
But thank you so much, you three, for being here. It's awesome watching your careers and get inspiration from it. I speak to a lot of new people who I know it's hard to believe who've never heard of Salesforce. We all live in this world where we live and breathe it, but there's so many military transitioning service members and military spouses who've never heard of Salesforce. And I'll be asked, but why? Why Salesforce? What's one thing that you would advise somebody who is looking to transition into a Salesforce career, or maybe slightly interested in it? Just what advice or what words would you say to them to say, hey, you should check it out? Because sometimes I'm like, I start gushing about David Nav and I start going on about the military community and I'm like, I'm not getting through.
I would say it's a support apparatus around the Salesforce military side. I'm sure, maybe greater Salesforce, I'm sure it's probably there. I can't speak to that. But I'd say it's that support apparatus from the employees, within Salesforce, or anybody really. I'm working within the ecosystem, and 100%. And I think that was the biggest difference for me. It was, I looked at all the other big companies, and all the other big names, and I even knew people that worked there that were teammates. I knew this guy. And they're like, oh yeah, hey, how's it going? And hey, there's this thing, we have this program, and maybe we can get you some stuff or whatever. And then I meet somebody like Elio or whomever, and like, yeah, let's link up, let's do a 30-minute call. And it's just that support apparatus. It's associated with the Salesforce ecosystem. It's real. It's 100% real, and it's passionate.
It is, and even if you're not a military trailblazer, if you're not a military veteran or a spouse, you still have Trailhead in and of itself, which is a huge learning platform, 100% free, and you still have access to that 14.9 million Trailblazer community user group where you can jump into chats. You can have the Salesforce Saturday groups. There's tons of support there, whether or not you are or are not a military trailblazer. So that exists for everyone. It's phenomenal. And any thoughts to add, Geralyn or Anni?
Yeah, I just have to agree with Tim. Like I said before, I got out in 2013. And so, I had worked quite a few years out in the civilian world. And I had worked in quite a few different, at a few different companies, just because we would move every few years with my husband. So, for me, just that community that we have, it's really special. From all the places that I've worked, there really has not been anything like it. So I shout it from the rooftop that, my gosh, if you need help, reach out, because you will be hard pressed to find a veteran or a military spouse that will tell you no. We're all here to support you, and that's really something special.
Absolutely.
For me, it was probably the closest culture to the military that I found in the civilian world. The civilian world still confuses me. And I know I'm technically a civilian my whole life. I never actually served myself. But I'm green. I bleed green, right? I just do. And to me, being able to call up one of the fellow military spouse or military and go, do you know that this guy actually told the manager no? They can do that. And having somebody to bounce that off of, it's just a unique culture. It's very family we're a big family. It just is. And if all else, like Tim said, or Timothy said, that you've got that support, right? You know, you've got a patch on your shoulder. Some of, you know, you walk down the street, you know, the guys who've been in the military, they just walk different. Same thing. Salesforce people just walk different.
Yeah. And I often, go ahead, Geralyn.
Sorry. You know, Annie and I have been on these calls for a while, and like we had no idea that we lived in the same town, right? And so we found out we lived in the same town, and Annie and I went and got coffee together. You know, it's
supposed to be 30 minutes.
Don't tell them how long it was. No, you know, it's that type of community where, you know, yeah, like Annie and I didn't know each other personally, but we had that connection, and you'll find that throughout the ecosystem.
Yeah, 100%. I always tell people I came for the tech and I stayed for the community. It's incredibly supportive. So we've got a couple minutes left, and we have a lot to do in those 2 minutes. I did want to get back to Carrie's question real quick. Calvin had a question, and then I saw that Willy's hand was raised. So really quick, Calvin asks, and I'll go ahead and answer it. And then if anyone from the panel wants to follow up afterwards, happy to have you do that as well. I'm releasing from the Royal Canadian Air Force this August, and then enrolling in an 8-month software dev course in September. Yesterday, I attended one of their seminars where a Salesforce coach mentioned that Salesforce has been hiring off of this course. While I'm completing this program, 2-part question: what resources are available that I can use to familiarize myself with what Salesforce does and determine what roles would be a best fit for me? So answer to that is Salesforce Military provides a program called Trailhead Military. So if you Google Salesforce, VetForce, you'll be able to pull up that site. And that is a free site, which as soon as you create a free profile, will provide you not only with a bunch of different career paths you can choose from. Once you select a career path, you'll be able to have access to Trailhead, which is guided learning platform. It'll give you exactly the modules to complete. Once you complete those modules within any one of those given tracks, and Dev is one of those tracks, then you'll be given a voucher for a free cert, as well as a voucher for a course. And so, you know, go to Trailhead Military, sign up today. That is your resource, and it does apply to Canadian military. And then the second part of the question is, are there any recommended course certifications I can work on alongside my software dev courses to become better prepared, more competitive for a Salesforce career? So kind of in line with that, when you sign up for your Trailhead Military account, a couple of ways you can go. You can choose to do admin, and I would argue that you honestly, even if you're a dev and you're coding, you still want to get that admin certification because you want to have familiarity with the platform. It doesn't do you much good if you're a whiz coder, if you don't know how Salesforce works and you don't know the boundary between configuration and code. Or you can also choose to go for Platform Developer 1 as that entry-level coding certification, and that's a great way to set yourself up. If you have questions about that, Calvin, hit me up, hit any one of us up on the panel afterwards, and we will be more than happy to help you out there. Carrie had asked, hey, Geralyn, how is it transitioning so quickly from your host company to Salesforce?
Yeah, it was not planned. I will say it was not initially planned. I knew that I always wanted to get to Salesforce. That was a goal, and I know a super lofty goal. But through guidance and talking to people and, you know, ideas from David Nava, you know, I was able to connect with people and just kind of ask those questions like, what do you do? What roles do you have? I had not heard about the success manager role before a call with Hillary that David had. And so I just started talking to her, and I was like, yeah, what about this role? Tell me a little bit more about this. And, you know, as you start making those connections, Salesforce is great about saying, you know what, we see, like, even if that role you applied for is not the right fit for you, they see if you have a passion and if that you're going to be the right fit at Salesforce. And so they help, like, they help find a role if there's another one that's open that you may be a good fit for. So like Tim says, like, probably a lot of luck, probably a lot of timing, but really, like, put in the groundwork for trying to keep your network strong. And I'm a firm believer in, like, put out the positivity into the world, help others, and it's going to come back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Geralyn. And certainly not the standard, right? It's difficult to do. It's difficult to either roll directly from the military into Salesforce, or even to roll shortly after being at a partner company to Salesforce. But as Geralyn and others have proved, you can do it. You can absolutely do it. So anything is possible in this ecosystem with the right attitude, the right network, and the right level of work ethic. And so I think, let's let's see if you are all three okay with hanging on for just a couple more minutes, if that's all right. Willy, did you still have a question or comment?
I know, David. Thank you very much. I know we're pressed for time, but I just want to simply just say thank the three of you for sharing your story, sharing your heart. For us that have been formerly in the military for a very long time, you guys have definitely are an inspiration. Especially for folks like us that we're trying to enter the ecosystem responsibly. So we're doing a lot of listening. Like you, Tim, doing a lot of research, because we want to do it right, So again, thank you very much for your time, and I'll be definitely reaching out to each one of you to get connected. Thank you.
We have the easy job, Willy. Like you all that are still in and transitioning, you have the tough job. So no need to thank us.
Well, I will thank you, and I'll piggyback on what Willy said. So we're at the end of the session. Before we do close, Geralyn, Tim, and Annie, thanks so much for lending us this hour and 3 minutes to get insight into your transition and then the tools, the resources, the mindset that you use to be successful. It's been awesome and a lot of fun having this panel. So thanks so much for joining this week. And thank you to everyone that made time on your Wednesday to join. And we'll go ahead and leave you. And hopefully you'll join us next week for another great session. So thanks so much. Have a safe week, everybody.